Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat. My name is always Asmal. This is a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. Now, we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow. For those who are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whichever podcast platform, please leave us a rating. Now, if you're joining us live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Kadammanja Phiri. He's a chartered accountant with experience in business development, marketing, planning, finance, and probably so much more. But today we are specifically discussing networking with a focus on getting out of your shell. Kada also happens to be the licensing officer for ACCA in Southern Africa. Kada, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for giving me the time. Thank you.
Let's jump straight in. So, Kada's been on the show before, so I'm not going to go into a big background around him. You can have a look at the previous episodes. If Kada wants, you can give us a brief intro, but
Okay.
I want to get straight into the topic.
Okay,
Cool.
all right. Maybe just a brief intro because last time I was here, I was the business development manager. So
Okay.
what has changed? Yeah. So I think maybe for the audience, just to get so I moved from business development, I moved into licensing and compliance in February last year. And the role came about because ACCA got accredited by the IRBA. So that our members, ACCA members, can become registered auditor. So my role is basically to support those that are training as auditors to make sure that the standard of training meets our global standards. So that's my bigger role, but it's also to support technically. Once we have auditors, registered auditors as well, I'll support the CPD, technical advice, and also how they can manage themselves ethically as well. So disciplinary and all those things as well. So it's a very exciting role because it's the first time this role has been in South Africa. So I'm the first one. So we're breaking ground here to us.
Okay. So this topic was actually after a post that I put out on LinkedIn, and Kada specifically mentioned that he'd like to chat about it. So, as we're talking about networking and getting out of your shell, why did you want to talk about the topic?
Okay, I think the reason why I want to talk about it because I'm a sort of an accountant who sort of moved from accounting to something else. So I was an accountant. I did everything that an accountant does. Then I got a role at ACCA as a business development manager. I think that was my first shock because you see, when you're an accountant, if you meet clients, it's either they're internal clients or external clients, but there's a reason why you're meeting them. But with the business development, basically you're trying to share what value you have with a product that you're selling, and then saying this is the value proposition that I have, and does it meet your needs? So I sort of learned a lot about listening because as you can know that sometimes we accountants will go and tell people, no, your ratio is this, or you have found this, and there are findings. We call them findings, remember? So we have found this, you see, but this conversation is not that. Is I've got a need, and then can your product be able to solve that need? So I learned a lot from that process because I'm also an introvert as well. So at work, that job requires you to be an extrovert. So how do you pivot from that? So that's why I said, let me share my. They are very, very small suggestions that I would put across. They can work for them and they cannot work, but that's just how I did it. Yeah.
Okay. Before we get into those practical tips,
Yes.
let's talk a little bit about the whys.
Yes.
Why are so many accountants afraid to network? Why are so many accountants afraid to put themselves out there?
Yeah. I think to put yourself out there, number one, I think the first thing that people don't put themselves out is rejection. Okay. The fear of rejection. Somebody will say no. Somebody will say, I'm not interested. There is an awkward moment where you introduce to each other and you say, it's nice knowing you, or it's nice meeting you. How do you pick the conversation from there? Okay. It's very difficult. And it's not just accountants. The second thing I think is that most of us as accountants, we think we study for a long time a lot. So we get very bogged down in studying accounting, but sometimes we don't spread our knowledge to other subjects as well and what other people do as well. So because for you to make a very good conversation, you also have to have knowledge of other areas as well. Might not be technical knowledge in the way. So like economics, It might not, but you have maybe basic economics that you can chat with somebody who's an economist. So I think that's what we do. So when we finish studying, sometimes we also don't say, okay, let me learn about this, let me learn about this, let me learn about that, let me learn about that. I think that's the second question. And then the third question is that because we've always been viewed as a back-end operation to support the organization, we're always not at the front of the organization as well. So we are a support function. Somebody will say support function. Once you do that, you're always at the back end. So we say, oh, we do our work quietly in the back end, and then we produce results, and then we do. Those three reasons is what I would say that makes accountants not have those skills of networking and getting out of your shell.
Okay. And I noticed, I think one of the other reasons is also we deal with a lot of black and white. We deal with numbers. So
Yeah.
it's always objectively right or wrong. When it comes
Yes.
to networking and business development, it depends on someone's opinion of you, or it depends on it's gray. It's very gray.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
some people struggle, some accountants struggle to move from black and white into the gray because it's
Yes.
uncertain and they don't like uncertainty. That's the risks. So I think that's one of the other reasons.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
How do we overcome some of these fears?
I think the first thing that we need to, so I'll tell you how I overcame those fears. So first of all, I sort of asked myself to say, okay, what does every human being want? Every human being wants to be listened to. Okay. So in my reading, in my experience, I started to say, okay, every human being wants to be listened to. Everybody wants to tell their story. Okay. That's how a human being is structured. Okay. So what I started to do is that, let's say I will go to events like the Finance Indaba. It's an event that happens every year in Joburg. I would say let me meet 5 new people at these events. Okay. But also, people would come to our stand because we've got an ACCA stand. So you talk to them. But you said, no, people are approaching me, but let me approach them. Okay. So it will be somebody I know from LinkedIn. But what I would do is that I do a lot of research of somebody before I meet them. Okay. Just even LinkedIn. I don't have Facebook, but I think from LinkedIn, sometimes you pick up what interests them and everything as well, so that you go. So with a conference, it's easy because sometimes while you start the conversation, you say, oh, I know you from LinkedIn. My name is Kada. Say, oh, yes. I remember that we were debating about this issue. Hey, okay, I know. No, how are you, man? Then you introduce each other. Then you say, okay, yeah, it's good to put a face to a name. So sometimes what you do is that you say, okay, you know what? Have you looked at the program today? Okay, because you want to break the ice. What topics are you interested in? Me, I was interested in that one, but what would you recommend? You see, now the person starts talking about what they think. They say, no, you should go to this one. You should go to this one. They start explaining to you. You should go to this one because they're going to discuss, or maybe my boss is part of the panel as well. So you can get to understand us as a company about what we do and people have to talk about what they do. Okay, then you ask them to say, what's your name of your company and what do you do? And then they start explaining to you, and you see somebody is very animated, and that way you put the person at sense. And sometimes they'll say, I'm talking too much about myself. Okay, let me ask you. You said you're from ACCA. Tell me a bit about ACCA. That's how a conversation starts to flow. Okay, but what you did there is you made the person comfortable to talk about themselves, and you listened, and that's what it do. It's small things, but it also takes courage to approach somebody. It's not like I was not nervous. I was nervous, but I think the nerves is what nervousness does. It can paralyze you, or you can go forward and say, you know what, let me reach out to this person. But those are the key things that you need to do. Sometimes even body language, like, oh yes, yeah, oh okay, yes. Things like that. It makes the person feel that they're being listened to. Yeah.
For the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end, so make sure to add your questions to the comment section now so that we don't miss them. One of the other things that people don't tell you about in varsity when you're studying is that, and it does happen in large corporates, but even more in small businesses, is that people like doing business with people that they like or that they get along with.
Yes, correct.
Networking and chatting to people and finding out about them are steps in your journey to getting to know someone and getting someone to like you.
Yes.
And if you put two people together with the same same skills, the same competencies, and the one you get along with and the other one you don't get along with, they're gonna choose the one that they get along with
Get along
because
with,
they have a
yes.
connection.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, they have a
so, and nobody like they don't have a networking class in varsity, but at the end of the day, if you're doing business with people, people like doing business with people. They like
yes, yes,
people
yeah,
like
yeah.
so you have to learn to get to like people
Mm,
or
mm,
to get people to like
mm,
you at least.
mhm.
Is there
Yeah.
any other tips? Okay, sorry, you had a comment on that before I go
Oh
to
yeah,
that.
yes. I had a comment on that. You're right, and I think at the end of the day, people do business with people. I think that's the overarching, and then the second layer is what you just explained, that they do with people that they like. Yeah.
So let's say we've got someone sitting watching the show currently.
Yes.
Um, they want to put themselves out there, but they're scared. Do you have any other tips for them? Are there any low hanging fruits or quick wins that they can use to just get the ball rolling?
Okay, I think what I would tell them is that events are very intimidating, but also if there's a big event, it's easier to meet people there because there's a lot of familiar faces. Okay, it's different from it's a small event because you might not know anybody else. Okay, so some of the other tips that I can give them, if it's a dinner event and you're sitting on tables, try to find out who you are sitting with on that table and try to research about them. So because you don't know who you sit. Sometimes people are strict. They say you sit next to this person, but sometimes it's just free sitting. Everybody sits, but you just got a table. Try to find out who they are. Okay, what their interests are and what, and just search about them as well. So when you meet them, make sure that you speak to something that they want, that appeals to them. I think that's the first thing. Now, second thing is also your body. Your body. So sometimes people put hands behind their back. Sometimes have an open sort of way of your hands must be loose. Okay, it shows that you are approachable. Somebody will approach you and speak to you as well. Okay, and then I know in African society we don't look people in the eye, but if you're not comfortable with looking people in the eye, you could look at them in the eye, then look somewhere else, look at them in the eye and look somewhere else because sometimes you're shy. You don't want to look at them in the eye as well. Okay. And also use gestures as well. Use your head, nod, and use your hands. I mean, you use very well your gestures. You're like, you see, those gestures, use those gestures as well. Okay. But it's not an easy process. There's the nerves that get to you. But I think use that. Use that because once you know that I'm going to approach this person or I'm going to be sitting to this person, it makes it easier. Let's start a conversation and strike out a conversation. I think the other thing that has made networking also difficult is mobile phones as well. You go to sometimes an event, you sit with people, they are on their mobile phones as well. So I went to an event one time and the one person on the table said, let's leave our phones here and let's talk to each other as human beings because we are here for an event. We're not here to talk to people that are on your phone as well. So I think phones have also made us not here. So your body language and then knowledge as well. Try to read widely. Try to get to know topics from a wide range as well. I go to one of the things that I did is I go to a book club. We've got a book club. We meet every 3 months. One of it's called W Consulting. They do a book club, so they do invite writers and they give us a book to read, and then we meet the writer and whatever. When I go to that event, I make sure that I speak to 2 new people. It's not a lot of people that go there, it's like 40, but I make sure that I meet 2 people that I've never spoken to. So the first person that I speak to is the first 2 people that I speak to are usually people that I've seen them there, but I've never spoken to them. And sometimes it's by default because when you enter, you come early, you find that they're just people sitting, and then you say, oh, okay, let me just speak to them. Sometimes it's somebody you don't know, but because we meet quarterly, there's familiar with you. They say, oh, okay, because sometimes we introduce ourselves. So you start to know people as well. They also wear name badges as well, so which makes it easy as well to just come and say, oh, hi, Kada, how are you doing? Because there's a name badge as well. So when the name badges as well, name badges also are a clue as well. Sometimes they even put a title and where the company where they work. That is an easier way to start a conversation. So, oh, you work for this company? Oh, okay. No, I was there. Who did you meet? I met this one. Oh, so sorry, we didn't introduce each other. So those can break ice as well. So those are some of the things that you can do. But it's not an easy thing to do. But I think as you get better you get rejected. Some people close off from you but you always move on. It's not like I've been successful at every person I've spoken to, but I think those have just been ways that I've seen they make it easier for you to break the ice.
And that rejection, 9 times out of 10, it's got nothing to do with you and got
Yeah,
everything to do with them.
correct.
I
Yeah.
want to share two of my favorite tricks. Well, they're not
Yes.
tricks, but things that I use. So
Yes.
the one thing that I always keep in the back of my mind is that everybody's so busy with their own problems. Like a lot of people will say, "What if I say the wrong thing?"
Yeah.
Or "What if I put my foot in my mouth?"
Uh,
Chances are, like people are so busy with their own problems. If you say something silly, they're not going to in a week's time they would have forgotten about it. So there's no risk in sounding like a fool because nobody's going to remember it unless it's
yes.
recorded like this. Then it's a different story. But
Mm.
so that's the one thing. The other thing that I like to do with events is, let's say you go to an event and there's people at different tables, and there's two people at the one table, three at the other one, and they're chatting. I first go to the table with one person because that person needs someone to talk to,
Talk to,
because it's a
yes.
networking event. So you have a better chance of striking up a conversation with someone who's just standing with no one than
Yeah.
like trying to get into the middle of a conversation that's already going
Yes.
down a direct. You can still do that. It's just
Yes.
it's easier to start a new conversation with a new
Yeah.
person than try to get
Yeah.
in the middle of a conversation that's already started. So those are my two tips that I like
Very,
to
very interesting
give.
ones. The other thing that I also do is that sometimes I go to, there are people that are all people gravitate towards to, eh? So sometimes I go and talk to that person first, because I know that a lot of people are going to join us in that conversation. And then as the circle gets bigger, and then you start to know a lot of people, then you're talking to 8 or 9 people, and then the conversation has that. So sometimes you go to that person that, because there are people that the people just gravitate towards, and then you go and join that person, and then you find that the circle gets big as well. And sometimes you don't have to make the conversation; they make the conversation, but because people are listening, and then if everybody is introducing each other, because if the two of you, the third one joins, greets both of you, and says, "We haven't met," then you introduce. The third one goes, "I haven't met." Then your network is growing, but you're using somebody's. Do That's also a way that I also do as well sometimes. Yeah.
I like that one. I like that
Yeah.
one.
Yes.
You mentioned book clubs as an
Yeah.
option. Are there
Yes.
any other types of clubs that people can join to help them improve with their networking and getting out there?
I think you can join cycling clubs, hiking clubs as well. I think those are also places where you can network as well, because there's a common thing that you've come together for as well. Yeah. So, like you asked the book, we love books. So we come together for books. So it's easy to converse with. And I'll tell you the one thing about that book club, it's all accountants that go to that book club. But when you go there, you will be surprised the way people network each other. It's because we can even discuss the book itself. Did you read it? Oh, I read mine, because you also have a copy so that they are for science. And then you start talking about the book. That's when you see conversation are easy. You go to a hiking club, everybody will be talking about hiking. You go to a cycling club, everybody will be talking about cycling. So you have got a common topic to start from, and then everything flows from there.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. So
Yeah.
I mean, you don't realize you're networking because you're talking about something that you're passionate
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
but you're actually networking.
Yeah.
Another thing that people also join specifically for improving networking is clubs like Toastmasters,
Yes.
where they actually do public speaking, and there's
Speaking.
different
Yeah.
levels that
Yeah.
also will help you get out of your shell if you're looking for
Yeah.
something specifically to get you to level up your game.
Yeah. Yo. Game. Yeah.
Um, is it anything to do with, or I want to get your thoughts, does it have a
Yes.
lot to do with mindset?
Yeah, I think it has to do a lot, yeah, with maybe when you say mindset, I think maybe let's say that it's a very hard thing to do, okay? Because I think these days, so you and me, I think I saw when you posted and said when I was starting high school, this was what happened. So we similar sort of stuff. If you remember that time, you could approach somebody just by walking up to them, and even in a neighborhood, you walk to somebody that you don't chat with, and that I think phones to me and digital have also are playing a role in us being sort of antisocial. Okay, we're used to connecting with people digitally. We're not used to connecting people face to face. Okay, so it's taking us away from connecting with people. There are people that you talk with digitally, but you've never met them. So to me, apart from mindset, I would say the way we communicate has moved to digital, and it's moved away from physical, face to face. COVID also didn't do us any favors as well. So it's getting harder and harder. And in a profession, as we're talking of hours, and then that just makes it worse. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I agree with you. And I think my question on mindset was more you have to go into the conversation with a positive mindset. If you go into the conversation like, they're not going to listen to me, or this is not going to be successful, it won't be successful because you've already argued yourself out of you've argued yourself out of the process. So you have to have a positive mindset when you're going into any sort of discussion or growing mindset. So that was more from what I was thinking about.
Okay, all right. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
As we come towards the coming towards the end of the show, are there any last few words from you? Anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
I think this skill is very important as an accountant, because as you grow in your career, you start to realize that most of the senior positions that you get, it's about how you network and how you connect with others. Okay, there's a lot of work that CEOs, audit partners, people who are in executive positions do a lot of networking, and it requires you to have that skill. So it's a growth skill that you need to have. But you can start practicing it, joining these small clubs, these book clubs and hiking clubs, and start to get to know. But also, I think the other thing that sometimes we do as accountants is we go to events where the accounting events, like your financing indaba. Okay, sometimes we must go to events that there's different type of people that are attending the event. Okay, so if let's say it's a public speaking or they're discussing something, it makes a difference, because now it's not about accounting, but it's people that are discussing something different. I think we must spread ourselves and go to events where there's no accountants, and then we start talking to doctors, we start talking to lawyers, and then we start talking to lawyers. Then you start to hear how people see different perspective of certain issues as well. So that would be my advice to.
You make such a good point, because you have to learn to talk to people at their level. You can't go to a normal networking event with people from other professions and start talking about Section 10(1) of the Income Tax Act. Nobody cares. Nobody knows what you're talking about. You can do that at the accounting event. They'll look at you funny, but at least they'll know what you're talking about. But if you go to some other event, you have to talk at the level that the person you're speaking to can understand. So that's great practice. I think that's a very good way for the show to end off. Show has been live on YouTube. It should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel that it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Kada, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us.
All right. Okay. And we still owe to discuss about leadership as well.
That will be the next one.
That will be the next topic. Yes. Remember, we had that debate about what leadership is. Yeah. So let's talk one time.